All right, and we are live. Welcome back with Murphy Mac to another episode of the Fitness Beginner Podcast, where we help you get started on your fitness journey. How's it going, everybody? We got another awesome podcast episode for y'all today. And today is actually a pretty cool episode because today is actually the 200th episode of my podcast. So that's a little cool little mile marker for me to hit. So I've been doing this about 3 years or so now. So we have a guest joining us for the podcast. We have Mr. Chris Harris, and we're going to bring him onto the screen now. And Chris, just to give you a little idea of who we are and what we do at the Fitness Beginner Podcast is it's just a podcast to help people get started on the fitness journey. Try to help them, learn a little bit about it, learn about the basics. Try to help them get a little motivated, kind of inspire people to, stick to their fitness journey because sometimes it's not very easy for a lot of us. So that's kind of the whole idea for the podcast. So if you would, first off, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you. But if you would,
Glad to be here.
if you would just introduce yourself, and for anybody that don't know who you are, just tell them you in a gist, like who you are and what you do.
Sure. I live in Fort Worth, Texas, with my wife, Corey. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. And
Congratulations.
we have a son and a daughter who are grown. And for 25 years, I was a private contractor for the Department of Defense. I trained special forces and very, very physical activity. And since then, I've been on a journey of writing books and doing a lot of keynote speaking. And most of what I talk about and write about is around the subject of mental toughness and mindset.
Awesome. So when you say you train special forces, do you mean like you were special forces, or like you trained people who were in special forces?
I trained people who were in the special forces for 25 years.
Okay, that's awesome. How do you get into something like that?
Well, I was highly specialized. I taught elite close quarters combat, but I was highly specialized in the sense that I didn't use muscle memory. I just uploaded new information very quickly into the central nervous system. I made things automatic, instinctive reactions in just a matter of hours by bypassing their analytical mind and muscle memory and going straight into the CNS.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely above my head.
Actually,
So
it's right exactly where your head is,
yeah,
just
I
above
guess
the neck.
yeah, you got a point. So all right, so I saw somewhere where it said, "Did you get inducted into the martial arts Hall of Fame?" Is that what I see?
That's correct. I did.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations with that. In other words, you're somebody that you probably don't want to mess with.
Well, I'm an old government guy, so I would never mess with you without a purchase order.
Yeah. All right. So you're known as the Warrior Maker. So what does the Warrior Maker mean to you?
Well, I basically teach you how to go to war and win the war with your inner rivals. Procrastination, excuses, blame, fear of failure, fear of success, pride, ego. Anything that's keeping you from being the best version of yourself that you're capable of becoming is a rival, and you need to go to war with it, and you need to kick its ass.
I like it. I like it. So you went from literal war to now like mental war in a way. You just kind of
Well, all war is mental.
yeah.
If you've ever read Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, the entire goal is for it to never become physical. If it becomes physical, you've already lost.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think of it, but yeah. Um, so a lot of people kind of rely on motivation nowadays to get things done. So why is motivation unreliable for most people?
It's like trying to get into a nightclub with a fake ID. It's crap. It's not real. It's like going to the fair and eating funnel cake or cotton candy. I mean, it's got zero nutritional value. I mean, it tastes good for a few minutes, looks good, smells good, but it's not going to help you get anywhere. The only kind of motivation that matters is the kind of motivation that you can generate within yourself, intrinsic motivation, the ability to self motivate. External motivation, which is what most of us look forward to and most of us depend and hang our goals on, external motivation doesn't last. The only way you're ever going to motivate yourself in a way that's meaningful, that actually helps you achieve a goal, is if you get into your subconscious mind. If you don't get into your subconscious mind, your stuff's not going to stick.
So, what's one example of like somebody getting into their subconscious mind? Like relay it back to fitness. Like, say I want to start a fitness journey. I want to lose 30 pounds. How do you get in touch with your subconscious mind to kind of help you achieve that goal of losing 30 pounds?
Well, the first thing you're going to have to do is get past your analytical mind. And I would, if I was your coach, I would say, why do you want to lose 30 pounds? So if you can't get into the why, people always ask me, talk to me about resilience. Talk to me about that, indomitable spirit. Talk to me about overcoming adversity, getting through plateaus. And I always answer it the same way. I can't have that conversation with you unless I know why you started in the first place. It's the passion that surrounds the why you started in the first place that gets you through the hard stuff. You get up every morning and you go to the gym, and let's just say your goal is to lose, I don't know, 20 pounds. And you get up an hour early, an hour and a half early, whatever. You buy all the supplements, the protein shakes, you eat different, you drink a little less. Well, that's great until one day when you get on the scale and you've been busting your ass for 90 days, and all of a sudden you're heavier. Like you're actually gaining weight. Now, you and I know that might be a good thing, right? It could mean that you're gaining muscle and losing fat and all. We understand that. But for someone whose goal was specifically to lose weight, and you're getting up every day and you're doing the work, you're making the sacrifices, and then all of a sudden you get on the scale and you look at the number and you're actually gaining weight, what happens to your motivation?
It drops.
Yeah, so before you start, you better understand what it is you're doing and why you're doing it. So if you're not real clear on the why, then you're not going to have the resilience to overcome the adversity when you're faced with these plateaus. And then what will happen is you'll do what everybody else does, and you'll just turn around and start going back down the other way down the hill. You
Yeah,
got to be able, you got to be prepared for the friction. Look, there's no way you're going to go from where you are to the person that you want to become without a lot of friction along the way. So you have to start off planning for that friction. You got to start off planning on those saboteurs. Look, we all know who our saboteurs are. I know who mine are. You probably know who yours are. I would tell someone, I would say, all right, what is the most likely thing that is going to prevent you from actually reaching this goal and crossing the finish line? What is it? Okay. How are you going to beat it when it shows up this time? Like you got to begin with the end in mind.
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. There's definitely always going to be obstacles, and no matter whatever you're trying to do, there's definitely always going to be obstacles. Like you're saying, there's going to be friction. So I don't forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, I just went blank. Oh well. So I was going to tell you something. I had it on my tip of my tongue, and now I can't remember what I was going to say. All right, whatever. We'll move on. All right. So how do you define discipline in a way that like a beginner could understand it?
Well, discipline in its simplest form in the beginning is just consistency. Just it's consistency. Just do the same thing at the same time every day, even if it's only for 30 seconds. And then tomorrow it's for a minute. You know, when you first go to the gym and you're trying to really make some significant changes, they'll tell you that the three most important things are, technique, intensity, and consistency. But I tell people, forget about technique and intensity in the beginning. Just get the consistency thing down, because that's where everybody fails. Anyone that fails, that's where they fail. They stop being consistent. People don't fail because they went into the gym and they weren't intense enough one day. They don't fail because they went and their form and technique was lousy. They fail because they quit going. And so get the consistency thing down first. If you get that down, you can figure out the intensity and the proper form and technique. Look, there's some days when I used to go to the gym consistently because I had some very important physical goals. I was training Tier 1 Special Forces, and it was very important that I was physically fit. And at the time, I was 6'3", probably 280 pounds, and I was fit. I was very fit. But there were days that I would get up and I just did not feel like going to the gym. I traveled a lot internationally, and that just wears you out. Anybody who's been to 60 countries can tell you the jet lag's just horrible. You get back and you're just worthless for 3 days. But what I would do is on those days that I didn't want to go to the gym, I would say, all right, Chris, you're still going to get up at the same time and you're going to drive and you're going to sit in that parking lot for one song. Just go sit in that parking lot and play one song from your workout playlist. That's it. And then turn around and come home. You can do that, right? Yeah, I can do that. And sometimes I would go and I would just, all right, I'm just going to go sit and listen to one of my songs on my playlist, and then I'm going to turn around and come home. Sometimes I would be listening to that song in my car and say, oh, hell with it, I'm here. I might as well go and at least do one set, right? But what I was doing was I was placing a lot of emphasis on the importance of just the consistency of going and being there and showing up. Man, if you can get that part down, the rest is easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency is probably the number one thing that I preach on this podcast. It's you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's gonna be perfect in anything they do. So as long as you can just show up each and every day for yourself, eventually it's gonna work out for you. That's all I've done. Like I don't do anything special. I'm not the strongest guy in the gym. I'm not the fastest runner. I just show up every day. That's the only thing I do different than a lot of people, and that's why I've seen kind of success in my own personal fitness journey. And it just boils down to consistency at the end of the day. Like I definitely don't eat right like I should be, but if I do it consistently most of the time, then I can achieve those goals, whatever they may be.
I've written a lot of books. In the last 25 years, I think I've written 15 books, and I hate to write. I absolutely hate to sit down and write. It's boring to me. And but I had someone recently ask me on a podcast. I was a guest being interviewed, and they said, "How in the world do you write 15 books?" And I said, "You just sit down every day for about 5 minutes and bang out a paragraph. And next thing you know, one day you got a book. That's the secret sauce. Just sit down every day and say, I'm just going to sit down and bang out one paragraph."
Yeah, and then before you know it, a month goes by, you got a whole chapter done. Then the year goes by, you got the whole book done. It
25 years go
compounds.
by and you got books.
Yeah, and then it compounds too. That's what a lot of, especially in fitness, like your consistency. It takes a while to kind of see those results, but then after a while, they kind of start stacking on top of each other, and you start to see results, kind of faster. It's like compound interest almost, and that goes for a lot of things. Like you probably sat down to write one paragraph, but before you know it, you done wrote two or three paragraphs. Just because you got into that rhythm, that writing mode, and it probably compounded on top of
Yeah.
each other.
Well, every once in a while, you're kind of blessed with the flow state. And most of the time when you sit down to write, that flow state doesn't hit. But if I sit down every day and I just write a couple sentences or a paragraph, eventually I'm just going to sit down at the right time and that flow state is going to hit. And that's where all of a sudden, man, I sat down to write a sentence or two and I ended up writing, 13 pages. So if you do it consistently enough, eventually you're going to be at the right place at the right time and that flow state's going to hit you.
Exactly. It's always like you always hear people say, you always hear the term overnight success. It's like, yeah, I was an overnight success but I did it for 10 years. And then one night it finally hit and you saw that success. So you see that a lot, especially with like social media nowadays. I feel like that happens a lot. It takes one video for somebody to blow up, but they've been posting videos for years and then finally got that one shot just because they were at the right place at the right time. That's just from being consistent.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So what's something like a daily habit that somebody can do to help them build more like mental toughness?
Well, I created a method that I call MetaCue, METACUE, and I've used it for decades, and it really works. In fact, if I want to achieve a goal, I will do the MetaCue method, And I've never used the MetaQ method and not achieved the goal. I mean, it's that powerful. But it's because I understand how the subconscious mind works and what it thrives on. So, about 5% of what goes on in the course of a day mentally, only about 5% of it is in our conscious mind. The other 95% is pretty much automated. Blinking, breathing, holding your bladder, all of these things, being able to stand without losing your balance. All this is automated stuff. And all this is done through our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is outside of the conscious mind. And so that's where 95% of you is going on. And so I tell people, if you've got a new goal that you want to achieve, then you're going to have to write that new code for that new goal in your subconscious mind. If it doesn't get written in the subconscious mind, it ain't going to last. You're not going to make it. I don't mean to be negative, but you're just not. The subconscious mind is just way too powerful. Carl Jung, famous psychologist, said before he died, he said, until you can make the unconscious mind conscious, he said, you're just going to continue to let your mind control your life and you're just going to blame it on fate. You've got to find a way to make your subconscious mind conscious. And we do that through something called metacognition. A lot of neuroscientists actually believe that metacognition is the highest form of intelligence that we can possess in our lifetime. But yet so few people even know what it is. But what it is it's in its simplest definition, metacognition, it's thinking about what you're thinking, live in real time. It is the fastest way to personal improvement that we're aware of. And I'm not talking about awareness. Like when I said thinking about what you're thinking, you probably stopped for a moment and thought about that. Well, that's awareness. Metacognition is something that you get to a place to where you're never not thinking about what you're thinking. Which means that all of that subconscious mind that's driving everything in your life, your decisions, your actions, all of that stuff that's being driven subconsciously on autopilot, when you start thinking about what you're thinking, metacognition, what you're doing is you're constantly being aware of that automated system that's running your life. Because look, here's what a mindset is, okay? I'll just sum it up for you in one very simple sentence. Because most people couldn't tell you the difference between mindset, attitude, and belief. Okay? Mindset is mastering that space, that distance that lives between a stimulus and how you respond or react to that stimulus. So, thousands of stimuli a day, thousands. All right, so the moment that your alarm went off this morning, at whatever time it went off, and it was time to get the kids to school or time to go to the gym or time to take your supplements, whatever, it doesn't matter. When that alarm went off, that's a stimulus. And now how you react or respond to that stimulus, that's your mindset. And so mindset is mastering that small distance, that space that happens hundreds, if not thousands of times a day between stimulus and how you respond or react to it. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Somebody makes a smart ass remark to you at work. Somebody insults you or someone you care about. Somebody, promised you that they were going to, give you a purchase order, and do business with you by Friday at 5. And then all of a sudden they went dark on you. Now they want to return your calls. All of these things are stimulus. Well, mastering the art of how we respond and or react when that stimuli come our way, that's mindset. That's mental toughness. I own that space. In other words, you can control the circumstances, but I control my perspective of that circumstance. In other words, my life is not influenced or affected by external factors. External factors happen constantly throughout the day, but I determine the impact they're going to have on me, not the factor itself. I can't adjust the wind, but I can adjust my sails.
Awesome. So you said you couldn't tell the difference between mindset, attitude, and there was another one. So what
Belief.
would be in belief? How would you differentiate those three?
Well, let's say I'm getting ready to go fight in a UFC tournament Saturday night, and I'm getting ready to get into the cage, and I got to fight whoever. Well, my attitude says I sure hope I can win. Belief, I go a little bit further than attitude. Oh, I know I'm winning, right? Mindset, there's no way in hell you can beat me. I don't care who it is in that ring. You're not beating me. It's just they're like they're all kind of the same thing but a different level.
Mm-hmm.
So like attitude would be like white belt. I really think I can win tonight. And then belief would be like purple belt. Man, I know I'm gonna win. And then you get the mindset, that's black belt. You ain't nobody's beating me. Put whoever you want in there.
Yeah, it is a good way to look at it. I like how it is kind of like levels to it. It's like each level gets a little deeper.
You know, you look at your kids and you're like, I don't think I like your attitude. Well, just be hope that just hope be glad that that's an attitude you're dealing with and not a mindset.
Yeah. So, what do you see in a lot of people that what kind of like self sabotage do you see a lot of people say? Maybe for example that they get in their fitness journey. Like what's kind of like, or I guess a better question was how do you overcome kind of self sabotage or self doubt when it comes to whatever goal it is, like a fitness goal, for example.
Well, I think you have to really take a deep look at probably the biggest player in our lives is fear. I mean, fear just shows up so many ways. You know, you see somebody who's too cocky, fear's under that. Somebody a little too arrogant, a little too prideful, a little too braggadocious, a little too outspoken, sucks up all the oxygen in the room. Somewhere along there, you know, we could say, well, that's ego, that's pride, that's arrogance. Well, it's all tied to fear. Fear of missing out, fear of being left out, fear of not being seen, fear of not being appreciated, fear of failing, fear of looking stupid. Just fear has a really big role in our lives, especially for men who are, you know, our egos are just very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first thing I would tell you if you're going to start off on a journey, especially a fitness journey, because look, a fitness journey is tied to, I mean, for some people, it's about how I feel. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy, more vitality. But there's also for everybody that is getting into fitness because they want to feel better. There's also an equal amount of people who want to look better. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're getting into fitness because you want to look better, well, that means the ego is definitely involved. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't believe that ego is the enemy. I think that ego in balance can be a good thing. I think it, you know, to want to stand in front of the mirror and like what you see and have a little self-respect, I think that's a great thing. Just don't go too far with it, right? Don't wrap your self-worth into that. So I think you're going to have to be very clear about what it is you're afraid of. Like, just acknowledge it. Like, go to war with it. Own it. Accept it. Acknowledge it. All right, here's what I'm afraid of. Right here. This is it right here. Okay. You know, I hear some ridiculous things. You know, people tell me they don't want to go to the gym because they don't want to get too big. You know, come on, man.
That ain't happening.
I don't.
That
I
ain't
don't want to
happening.
get too. Yeah, I don't want to get too big. Really, just call it what it is. You're really afraid of setting this goal and then failing. That's what you're really afraid of. So it's just a whole lot easier to give all these reasons and excuses on why you're not doing it. But at the bottom line is this: just acknowledge what you're really afraid of, and then go toe to toe with it. Because rational fear is a very good thing. I mean, fear is designed. I believe fear is a gift from God, and I believe it's designed to be our counselor. You know, I think it's designed to protect us, and I think it's designed to motivate us. But if your fear is not protecting you or motivating you, it's irrational. And if it's irrational, it's your enemy, and you're going to have to go to war with it. And I don't care if it's, I want to go out and build a multi-million dollar company, or I want to be able to look in the mirror and have a six pack. Doesn't matter. You're going to have to confront the fear that has been blocking you every step of the way for every goal you probably ever had, and you're going to have to go toe to toe with it. And so irrational fear is a fear that has a low likelihood of happening, or irrational fear is a fear that maybe it does have a real likelihood of happening, but you're not taking any action to change the outcome. So it might as well be an irrational fear, because if that fear that is not motivating you to do something, look, if you're afraid, that if you don't come up with 3 grand, by May 1st, you're going to lose your house. Well, if the bank has already called you 5 times and sent you 3 letters and put a note on the door, that's probably a rational fear. But if you're going to sit around and watch Netflix all day, instead of going out looking for a job or trying to find ways to generate income to keep from losing your house, well, it might as well be an irrational fear, because it's not motivating you to do anything to change the outcome. So the first thing you have to do is identify what you're afraid of, and then you got to ask yourself, is this fear rational or irrational?
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely relate with what you were saying about the ego, because I think sometimes I can kind of I get too much into the fitness sometimes myself, because like, I don't know, fitness is kind of the thing I kind of fall back on. So sometimes I can like, kind of overdo it sometimes. And I do think it's, kind of related to the ego, and it goes back to, just what you said about it's the fear. So yeah, I definitely relate with that. And I think a lot of men in particular can relate with that as well. But a lot of times we don't realize it. Like a lot of times we don't realize that it is ego, or that it's fear. So I think that,
And
like
look,
you said, that's
I
the
would
first
tell
step.
someone this. If I would tell someone this, if you do a self examination, a self analysis, and you realize that your motivation for wanting to get fit is rooted in ego, it's rooted in pride, it's rooted in all the wrong stuff. Okay, I appreciate you acknowledging that and being honest with yourself, but that shouldn't change your desire to get fit and get in shape and go to the gym. It just means that I need to change my motive. Don't stop what you're doing. Just change your reason why you're doing it. Still get the six pack. Just do it now because you want to take better care of yourself, not because you care about what that person on the other side of the room thinks. Don't stop what you're doing because your motives are wrong. Just change your motives.
Yeah, this is a good way to look at it. I did want to, you did mention, so like you said, you were mentioning like the ego and it kind of being like, what's the word? Not cocky, like being cocky and ego of it. But earlier when we talked about mindset, you talked about like you said the black belt. You said, I know I'm going to win. So what's the difference in that mindset of saying I know I'm going to win, and then the opposite of somebody being like cocky or their ego is taking over? Like what's the difference there? Like how is one mindset and one's being cocky? Does that make sense?
Having the skill to back it up. I mean, look, skill comes through repetition. Ability comes through repetition. So if you've never fought a professional fight in your life, and you're over here telling the TV cameraman and speaking into the microphone, talking about how there's no way this guy can beat me, and you've never been in a pro fight in your life, sorry. Look, if I tell you if I step in that ring, there's no way you can beat me, it's because I've been in 1,000 fights. It's preparedness, it's confidence that's been earned through doing the work. If you go into the gym and you want to put in a hard workout, and you want to put in a hard workout with good results, and you want to do it without injuring yourself, and you want it to be effective, like if you've only got 90 minutes or 45 minutes, it doesn't matter. You're going to go in, you're going to get the work done, you're not going to leave anything on the table, and you're going to come out of there feeling great about yourself, and you're not going to get injured in the meantime. Because how many times have you done that workout? You have confidence in the fact that you've done it 1,000 times and you know what you're doing and you're a pro. And So that's mindset. But if you walk in there with swagger and you never lifted a weight in your life, and all of a sudden you're going over putting 225 on the bench, next thing you know, it takes 3 trainers to come over and save your life. Well, that's not mindset. That's arrogance.
So would you say mindset is only developed over time, like through consistency, practice, discipline? Or do you think mindset can be like a switch? Like, do you think somebody can have a certain mindset on day one? Because I feel like it's kind of both in a
It's
way.
both.
Yeah.
But, well, look, it is both. Um, I know that if I were to get in a fist fight with some stranger on the street, I know there's a 99% chance I'm going to win. Why? Because I've been fighting professionally since 1993. Not because I'm bigger, badder, tougher, but because I've been doing this a very long time. Now, am I going to walk around starting fights? Absolutely not. If somebody walks up to me and says some very rude, horrible things to me or me and my wife, am I going to bow up? Probably not. I'm going to do everything in my power to walk away from that situation, even though I know that due to my experience and expertise and 25 years doing what I've done, even though I know that the likelihood of me winning are very high, I've got enough maturity and self restraint and self control to where even though I know I could flip that mindset switch in the blink of an eye, I've also got the restraint not to flip that switch. So mindset is knowing I can flip the switch, but having the self control and the discipline not to flip it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I was trying to think of like a fitness goal when somebody like finally decides, hey, I'm gonna go all in. I'm gonna lose the weight. Maybe it's January 1st or something, New Year's resolution, and they just kind of flip that switch, and then like they actually stuck to it. To me, I would kind of think that's like a mindset too. Like they were like, all right, I'm tired of this. I'm no longer gonna be unhealthy. I'm gonna get right. But at the same time, like yeah, you can flip that switch, but at the same time, I do think you could build that mind. Like the longer they do it, like 1 month in, their mindset's probably a little bit stronger. 2 months in, it gets even stronger. So I feel like it's kind of it's like a two. It's like both. Like you say, you can kind of switch it on, but it's also built over time. Like you say, you've been fighting for 25 years, so you've built up that mindset. But I don't know. I guess it's two different kinds of mindsets in a way. If that makes sense, what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get it. Absolutely.
So what would you say? What role does keeping a promise to yourself? What role does that play, like in your self confidence?
Well, I'm not going to say self confidence, but I'm going to say happiness. Look, I don't believe a person, and this is just my own personal opinion, okay? But that's what podcasts are for, so we can just have a mutual exchange of conversation and share opinion. I don't think a person can truly achieve real happiness if they don't have virtue. I've never met a person who didn't have virtue who was truly happy. I mean, I know people without virtue who experience happiness temporarily from time to time, but they don't live in that state. They certainly don't live in a state of joy. So if you don't keep your word to yourself, I don't know how you can experience virtue. I mean, let's go to the Stoics. Let's go to Shakespeare. To thine own self be true, and then you can't be false to any man. So if you're not being honest to yourself, if you can't keep your word to yourself, where do you even get your virtue? And if you don't have any virtue, why does any of it matter? What are you even fighting for? I mean, at the end of the day, our job is to wake up and to say, I'm going to do my very best today to make myself a better version of myself than I was yesterday. Even if it's only 1 degree better, even if it's only 1/2 of 1 inch better. I think that our responsibility in this lifetime is to develop ourselves to become the best version of ourselves that we can become. And I think getting up and going to the gym every day is a big part of that because we're mind, we're body, and we're spirit. And I don't think we can sit here and say that one of those three is more important than the other. If we have a responsibility to develop ourselves to the fullest of our ability in our lifetime, well, how can we do that if we're not working on mind, body, and spirit? So I think getting up and going to the gym plays a very big role to me keeping and fulfilling my responsibility to myself, which is to become the best version that I'm capable of becoming of myself.
Do you think that you can build up confidence in yourself before you start seeing any like results? So before you start seeing
Sure.
like,
Sure. The fact that I show up every day at the same time and I haven't missed in 2 weeks and I haven't been late in 2 weeks and I haven't called and canceled on my workout buddy in 2 weeks. And even though I haven't gotten any stronger and I haven't lost any weight and my body fat percentage is still the same and my diet's still crap, the fact is, for 2 weeks straight, I've showed up at this gym at the same time without excuse or without failure. That's confidence. Confidence in the fact that I said I was going to do something and I'm actually doing it. Absolutely.
yeah, I always like to say, don't make your goals, especially in fitness, don't make your goal results based. Make your goal like action based. So it's kind of like what you said. You showed up to the gym for 2 weeks in a row without missing. So that would be
Mm-hmm.
like the action. So your goal would be instead of I want to lose 10 pounds, say I want to go to the gym 3 days this week for the next month. Like that would be your goal. So I totally agree with you.
I
Just
look. I
showing up for
tell.
yourself.
I
Go ahead.
tell. I tell people, look, stay away from the scale. Stay away from it.
They can lie
When
to
you
you.
start, when you're starting to achieve meaningful results, you're not going to need a scale to tell you that. All you're doing is you're running the risk of getting on that scale and being discouraged. What you're after is not on that scale. What you're after is looking in the mirror and seeing a different version of yourself. And you're not going to get that from the scale.
Yeah,
One day you're going to be sitting down at dinner with somebody that hadn't seen you in a long time, and they're going to look at you and say, "Man, you look great. What are you doing?" That's the scale.
yeah, we definitely get caught up on the scale too much. It's just it's pretty unfortunate, but uh, that's just kind of how it is. We've been relying on the scale for so long. It's kind of hard to take that away from people now. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The scale can definitely lie to you sometimes, and then sometimes it don't really show all the results. So it's like you said, that compliment you get from your friend will go a lot further than what that number on the scale says to you every day, for sure.
Hmm.
So what would you say? What's more important? Well, you already answered that. I was gonna say what's more important, consistency or intensity? But I think we all kind of know the answer to that one.
Consistency.
Yeah. What does how does staying disciplined, or how can busy people stay disciplined when life kind of gets chaotic or their schedule gets messed up or something like that?
Well, they got to take a look at what's making them busy. I mean, there's a big difference between activity and productivity. I know people that are busy, busy, busy all the time, but they never get anything done. Just because you're busy doesn't mean that you've actually found the economy of motion. I know people who look amazing, who literally go to the gym for 28 minutes. They go in, they get it done, and they get out. And they look amazing. And there's no talking at the water cooler. There's no gabbing with their buddies. Man, I mean, look, when you walk into a gym, and I don't know if this is true for you, but this is definitely true for me. If I were to tell you that only 10% of the people in the gym at any given time are actually training, the other 90% of the people in that gym, they're just exercising. But 10%, they're training. If that were true, and you walked into a gym, whatever gym you want, at the busiest time of the day for that gym, how long would it take you, based on your experience of being a fitness expert and an exercise enthusiast, how long would it take you to walk in that gym and tell me point out the 10% that are actually exercising versus the 90% that are training?
Pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 10% that are training, then the 90%
Mm-hmm.
that are just exercising. You'd be able to pick them out pretty quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what you're really doing is you're saying, well, those people over there, they're the busy ones. Those are busy. But these people over here, the small percentage, they're being productive. Look, you can go do an exercise, do 100 reps of something the wrong way, poor form, or do something that just absolutely makes no sense, or stupid exercises. Have you ever walk by somebody doing something and you're like, "Whoa, what are they even doing?"
All the time.
Yeah, that's busy. Yeah, those are busy people in the gym. So I would say find out whatever it is that's keeping you busy and find out what's not productive and get rid of it.
Yeah, I can
You
tell
don't
you.
need more hours in the day. You just need to quit doing the crap that's not helping.
Yeah, and for most people, it's this thing right here.
Yeah, gosh.
It gets everybody.
Yeah,
I
and go sit on the most popular machine at the most busiest time of the day at that gym and just park it on that machine that everybody's coveting and then just start watching your videos. We love that.
yeah, I can't say I hadn't done it before, but I try not to. I've been working out at the garage gym in the garage gym lately, so I don't have that problem no more. But so what's something that successful people do when motivation disappears? Like what do they do? How do they stay consistent when they don't have that motivation there?
They do it without being motivated. They do it unmotivated. They do it anyway. They understand that motivation is not the spark that leads you to doing it. Motivation is the reward, it's the result of doing it when you don't want to do it. So that's the difference right there. It's, there's people who will only do it when they're motivated to do it, and there's people who will do it especially when they're not motivated to do it. And those are the ones that transform their bodies and their lives. Can you get up and do it every day when you have no motivation to do it? Those are your champions.
Absolutely, it's
What's
like
that? I don't remember his name, but he was the head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a long time. But there's a famous quote by him, and he said, "If I have to motivate you, you're fired."
it's like that the quote you hear. Hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard. It's kind of the same way.
Yeah, I got no tolerance for people that have to be motivated to do something.
So, would you say there's a difference between discipline and consistency?
Well, I mean, like one's the mom, one's the dad. I mean, they're the parents of results.
Yeah, they kind
I
of go
mean,
hand in
because
hand.
look, yeah, because you can have discipline but only go once a week. I don't know if that's going to help you. You can eat perfect. You can have a perfect diet, but only on Saturdays. You know, I mean, you got to have discipline and consistency. You need them both.
Yeah, I
I
guess
mean,
they
think
kind
about
of.
it. If you've got consistency, but you have a discipline problem, so great. I ate perfect for 5 days in a row, and then I binged on Little Debbie's for 3 days. I mean, you got to have both.
Yeah, I was just curious as to what. I guess they do kind of go hand in hand. I was curious what you would have said if there was any difference or not. But yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. That
Well, I mean, it'd be like if you asked me, "Hey, Chris, who's gonna get the best results? A guy that goes to the gym once a week and he's perfect and he's flawless in everything he does for that one day. Diet, cardio, routine, you know, what do you call it? The technique. Like he's just flawless for one day a week. And then you got another guy that goes 5 days a week and he half-asses it every day, but he's there 5 days a week. His diet's about halfway where it needs to be, but he's 5 days a week. I mean, who at the end of the day is going to do better? The 1 day a weeker who's perfect, or the 5 day a weeker who is just half-assing it. I don't know. I mean, the moral of the story is you got to have both.
Yeah. But I would even take it as far as saying that the guy that's going 1 day a week but doing it perfect, I don't know if I would consider him disciplined. I mean, I guess in a way he is. If his plan is to go once a week, I guess that is discipline. But like, as far as fitness goes, I don't think I would necessarily consider him disciplined, because we all know, like, to have a successful fitness journey, you're going to need to do it more than once a week. So I don't know.
I have, when people find out that you've written a book, it's very common for them to say, "Oh, really? I've always wanted to write a book." Like, it's just very common. I've got an idea for a book, or I've started a book. And so I hear that all the time. I've written books for 25 years, so I just imagine I've heard that hundreds of times. Out of the hundreds of people that have told me they want to write a book, I can only probably count two that actually wrote a book. Everybody wants to be a Navy SEAL, but nobody wants to go out and do push-ups in the rain. So intent is not enough. You got to get up and you got to do the work, and you got to do it consistently. And if you're gonna shortcut me on anything, shortcut me on intensity. But just, man, get there.
Yeah, to me, I guess kind of discipline would be that, like we said earlier, what do you do when you're not motivated? You get up and do it anyways. That would be discipline, like, to me. That's how I see it. And then consistency is obviously just doing that consistently. Like, if you're not motivated, you do it anyways every time you're not motivated. So I guess they kind of go hand in hand in that way.
I agree.
Yeah. So how does building like a fitness discipline, fitness routine, how does that spill over into your career or like your relationships? Just general like life success, like other areas of your life.
Well, I'm a big fan of getting surrounding yourself with mentors and coaches and just good influences. So if I wanted to start working out and transform my body and start eating healthier, if I could afford it, and let's just say I couldn't afford it, and I didn't really know what I was doing, I'd find somebody who knew what they were doing. And even if I had to barter with them, like if I had a landscaping company, I'd say, all right, I'm gonna come cut your grass once a week. I'm gonna trim your hedges. I mean, I'm gonna find a way, even if I could not afford your services, I'm gonna find a way to get that transfer of knowledge from that coach, that consultant, that expert. So, I would tell somebody, if you're, just now getting into fitness and, and you've got all these big goals, find somebody who knows what they're doing, and either pay them what they're worth or barter with them, or do something, do a mutual exchange of service, but find a way to get them to transfer that knowledge, because otherwise you're just going to go in there and do it wrong for years. And the faster you can find the economy of motion, the faster you can learn to do it right, the better, and the less likely you are to get injured as well. So I'm a big fan of, in business or in health or exercise, man, find somebody who's already got it figured out and learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I always recommend hiring a trainer, like when you first start, for any beginner, because it shortens that skill gap, the learning gap. It shortens it down a lot. Like something that's going to take you years to learn, you could learn it in a few months if you're working with somebody that knows what they're doing. And then same goes with business. Like if you want to run a $10 million business, well, learn from somebody that's built a $10 million business before. That's the best way to do it than trying to figure it out yourself.
I am not
Honestly,
afraid. I am not afraid of fighting anybody who taught themselves karate. I'm just not.
yeah, yeah. I guess that is a good point. I never thought of it, but yeah, because it yeah probably took them forever to teach themselves how to
If you
learn
tell
from
me
it.
you taught yourself karate, I am not scared.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think I would be scared if I was you either way. So do you think struggle is necessary for growth?
It's a requirement. It's demanded. I don't think you can have it without it. I mean, the struggle is what leads to the growth. I mean, how could someone achieve growth without struggle? I don't get that. The struggle is part of the growth.
Yeah, I guess if you like for a fitness journey, I guess working out, breaking down your muscles, doing
Well,
the
you can't you
cardio.
can't you can't build a muscle if you don't tear it.
Yeah, exactly. Or like most people don't like doing cardio, so that would be like the struggle. But the growth would be building endurance or losing weight. So yeah, I guess it. Yeah, you got to have one for the
If
other.
you do not tear your muscle, you are not going to build your muscle. I mean, that's just science.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to tear it, and then you got to give it time to heal and recover. And we do that through diet, nutrition, and rest. That's the cycle.
so
I
you
mean,
worked.
the only rep that counts is the rep that you do past failure. That's the rep that counts. I mean, unless your goal is just to go maintain, which that's a different conversation. But if your goal is to build, you have to tear it.
Yeah, I guess that goes for anything. It relates. If you want to grow, you gotta put in the energy, the time, the effort, or the struggle in this case, to kind of come out on top on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So you've worked with a lot of like high performers before. What's something that some lessons that you've learned from working with high performers? What's something that everyday people can apply that you've learned from like high performers? What's something that they could do that everyday people
Well,
could do?
well, I've not just worked with high performers. I've worked with like ultra high performers. So if you think about, you know, all the people who actually decide they're going to join the military, and then out of that number of people that actually make it into the military that are considered to be fit for uniform, and then out of those people, the ones that say, you know what, I think I'm going to try out for special forces, and then they try out for special forces and they get selected to actually go to the qualification course, and then the small percentage of those that actually make it and earn their trident or whatever, become a green beret or a seal. So the percentage of those people who are actually special forces, which is who I trained for 25 years, the percentage of the ones who actually become special forces, they're a very small percentage. So they are the elite performers. They would be the equivalent of someone who played football their whole life but eventually went pro. We know statistically, I don't care how good you are at football, your chances of becoming an NFL player are very, very low, right? So I've worked with what would be the equivalent of the military who went pro, okay? And I will tell you that many of them have some similar traits. Not all of them, but many of them have a chip on their shoulder. Many of them have something to prove, either to themselves or to someone who told them they would never make it. Many of them live beyond their means, which kind of adds that need to get out there and just do a little extra, right? But it's also the same way in sales. If you take a look at like a lot of the top sales performers, like that one percentage, of your sales team, who's the one who goes out and brings in 80% of your quota, they typically have some things in common. They usually got a chip on their shoulder. They usually come from broken homes. They usually got something to prove to themselves or either to someone who told them they would never amount to anything. And they usually live beyond their means. And so, and I can't sit here and point you to some paper, that proves what I'm saying. But I can tell you, I've been around enough top performers in my lifetime to tell you a lot of them share some of these common denominators. I know that's me. I mean, I'm a top performer, and I can tell you, I came from a broken home, had something to prove, uh, lived beyond my means, had a chip on my shoulder. So when I heard that for the first time, I was like, that's great. I'm going to make it.
So when you say live beyond your means, what exactly do you mean by that?
Oh, just imagine you're in sales and, you're making a low base salary, but you got a really high commission. But you only get that commission check if you perform, right? So the first thing you go out and do is go out and buy a car that's about 3 times more than you can afford. And now you got this, very low base salary, but a really high commission if you perform. And next thing you know, you're driving a $1,200 a month Yukon Denali. That's living beyond your means. You're living based on where you're going to be because you're going to perform. And you go out and you get that car based on the commissions I know I'm earning because you told me I could earn them. As long as I did the work, I could earn them. Well, I'm doing the work, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the car now. That would be an example of a sales professional living beyond their means. They
Is
got a
that
$40,000 a year base, and they're driving a $100,000 a year, truck.
now? Is that because it forces you to make those commissions to be better,
Absolutely,
or because you just
absolutely.
believe in yourself? Like, is that?
Well, it's both. I mean, you put
Mhm.
yourself in that position because you believe in yourself, but what you're doing is you're putting yourself on death ground.
Yeah,
I have to perform now. And so people who have enough belief in themselves to intentionally put themselves on death ground, they usually find a way or they make a way. I mean, they win.
yeah. It's like the quote about burning the boats. You got to burn the boats. There's no
Well,
turning
that's
back.
death ground. That's from
Yeah,
the same book. That's from the Sun Tzu, The Art of War.
yeah.
You know, absolutely. There is no going home.
There's no plan B.
No.
So if somebody's listening right now and they feel stuck where they're at right now, whether that be fitness journey or just some mindset or something, what's the first action you think they should take today to kind of get them set on the right path?
Be very clear about what it is you want. Write it down. Tell a couple people. A lot of people don't achieve a lot in life, not because they're not disciplined or not because they're not committed, because they're just wandering aimlessly. A lot of people just don't ever take the time to declare exactly what it is they want. Look, if you don't know what you want, nobody can help you. Figure out what you want.
So what would you say if somebody don't really know what they want? Like they're kind of stuck in
Then
between.
then just go start watching YouTube videos until you stumble across something that interests you. Start talking to people who know you. Go to some good friends. Go to church. I mean, I don't care, but you're going to have to start communicating with people and say, hey, what do you think? You've known me for a few years. What do you think some of my core strengths are? I mean, just have conversations, but don't just go home every day at 6 o'clock and shut the door and go turn on Netflix and make your dinner. And I mean, that's never going to change anything. But if you don't know what you want, then go find somebody who knows you and ask them. And if you don't know anyone who knows you well enough to ask you, start watching documentaries. I mean, look, if you're hungry enough, you'll find it. If you're determined to figure out, look, I don't know what I want, but by golly, I'm going to figure out what I want. Look, the evidence of desire is pursuit. So if you don't know what you want, do you at least have enough passion and tenacity and commitment to figure out what you want? Because if you don't, I'm not going to take you on as a coach. I can't help you. What do you want? I don't know what I want. Well, are you willing to do whatever it takes to figure out what you want? Well, not really. I can't help you.
And you can't help somebody that don't want to be helped.
No.
Don't work that way. So how would you say somebody they're trying to figure out what they want? So they're trying different things. How would you know when something is not the right option? Like how would you know when to stop doing something and try something else? If that makes sense. Like something may not be right for you, or you
Well,
may
I
not.
always I always use the indicator of joy. I mean, I could be doing stuff that, it's just not working yet. I mean, I'm putting in the time, I'm putting in the hours, I've made the investment, and I'm just not seeing a return on my investment, but by golly, I enjoy it. And look, if there's the presence of joy, if there's some happiness, if there's some peace, I know I'm at least in the right ballpark. But if there's no evidence of happiness or joy or fulfillment, man, move on. Life's about this long.
So to play devil's advocate for that one, how would you what would you tell somebody that they know they need to lose some weight, but they don't enjoy working out? I know that's a lot of people don't like to go to the gym. They don't enjoy it,
Well,
but they know they
well,
need to do it.
well, then get used to being fat.
They already used to it. That's why they're
Well,
trying to
then,
change.
then come to a place of acceptance and just accept the fact that you're fat and you're going to be fat the rest of your life. Look, if you know you're overweight and you know that you could lose the weight if you did the work, but you've just decided it's too damn hard and you're not going to do it, well, then do yourself a favor and at least come to the place of acceptance and accept the fact that I'm fat, I'm overweight, and I'm just too damn lazy to do anything about it. At least enjoy the fact that you're being honest with yourself.
Yeah, I guess when you can accept it, it makes it you can kind of still live your life and have that joy because you decided you're not going to do it. So it's like we were talking about earlier, the irrational fear. Like you decide you're not going to do it, there's no point in worrying about it.
I recently had this situation where I almost lost my life, and I just a couple weeks ago, and I had a seizure. Never had a seizure before. Had a seizure, 911, rushed me to the hospital. My wife had to perform CPR on me, ended up saving my life while the ambulance got here. They get me to the hospital, they do an MRI, and they find a big tumor in my brain. They do an emergency surgery, they remove the tumor, and 6.5 hours later, I'm tumor free. Now, this is just like 3 or 4 weeks ago. The back of my head looked like a crime scene, 20 staples, big ass scar. And the first thing the neurosurgeon starts telling me is all the things I'm not going to be able to do, all the things I can't do. I get up every morning. We got a grandbaby, and we got a lot of my grandbaby's books here in the house for when she's here. And I just pick up her books and every morning just start reading aloud these first grade books. I couldn't even say my S's. Couldn't walk without a cane. I couldn't stand without holding onto a wall, without falling. I went to the gym this morning, lifted weights, and did cardio. You're either going to be the kind of person who accepts excuses, or you're either going to find a way or you're going to make a way. And I don't tell that story. I'm not trying to impress anybody. And I'm not trying to depress anybody. But if I sat around and waited, for doctors to tell me what I could and could not do, or for friends and family to tell me what I could or could not do, or for the internet to tell me what I could or could not do, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I couldn't talk. And, we are incredible vessels. We are incredible beings. Our potential we still don't understand the human potential. It's unfathomable what we're capable of doing and being and becoming. And if you're fat and you don't want to be fat anymore, then wake up one morning and say, I'm done being fat. And just do the damn work. And I don't mean for that to sound easy, because it's not. I used to be
Yeah,
homeless. I used to be homeless. I slept under bridges. I mean, when I was hungry, I dug in dumpsters. I ate food from dumpsters. If I would have listened to everybody that told me I was never going to make it, never going to amount to anything, I'd probably still be homeless. I'm not letting anybody and their opinion of me or statistics or reports or studies define me. Either find a way or make a way.
Yeah, I think we're definitely a lot more capable than what we realize. Like the human body can do a lot, and the thing that stops most people is their mindset is inside. Just for
We
example,
are
like I
we are magnificent creatures. Magnificent.
yeah, I keep doing lately. I've been into endurance sports lately, and I kind of like doing them just because it shows me that I can do more than I realize. So like, I did an Ironman. I would have never thought about doing that ever in my life, but I was like, I'm gonna see if I can do it. And then I did a bodybuilding show. I was like, I'm gonna see if I can do that. And then I did a last year I ran a 100-mile ultra marathon, and I was like, there ain't no way I can run 100 miles, but I'm sure about to figure out if I can do it or not. So I kind of it's kind of like a way I've proven myself, hey, I can do more than what I realize. And it's through, showing up each every day, putting in the routine, like following the training plan on the days I don't want to, following, being disciplined and consistent, and just proving to myself that like I can do things that I put my mind to. So I talk about that a lot on the podcast. Is like you're a lot more capable than you realize. You can do a lot more. Your mind is just stopping you. You're telling yourself, "Oh, this sucks," or "I don't enjoy this," or "It's hard," or "I don't want to do this no more." But if you just push through and keep going, you'll surprise yourself. Like you can do a lot more than you realize.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we're over the hour mark, so I don't want to take any more of your time. But if you could just let the listeners know where they can find you at, your books, if you
Sure.
have any a website or whatever.
TheWarriorMaker.com.
Awesome. You can find your books and everything on there.
Everything's right there.
Okay. Yeah, we'll
TheWarriorMaker.com.
awesome. Yeah,
Love to hear
I'll put
from
a
you.
I'll put a link to your website down in the description. So if anybody wants to see it, it'll be
Okay,
down
great.
there in the description. So yeah, thank you for oh, go ahead.
Great conversation. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. I enjoyed it as well. You definitely got some very interesting stories. I'm sure you could tell stories all day about all your training and stuff. But have to be a conversation for another day. So yeah, thank you for joining the podcast. Y'all be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the Fitness Beginner Podcast.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.